This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should, too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. Coming up on this week's show, a review of Royal Caribbean's Liberty of the Seas. It actually hit Bermuda and then down to the Eastern Caribbean. So we'll have the review of Liberty coming up here shortly. But as always, staff writer Richard Sims with Cruise News. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doug.
We start the week off with a small fire on a big ship.
Not just a big ship, the biggest ship, Icon of the Seas. You know, a lot of people, when they saw those photos of the ship, you'll remember, people were freaking out, especially because the mainstream media was, running photos with weird fisheye lenses and stuff. But one of the concerns that people had was, what if something happens on the ship? Those of us who've been on ships tend to realize that, probably the bigger concern is fire. They always warn you about fire. We talk a lot about fire and why they don't want you smoking, except in designated areas, that kind of thing. In this case, earlier this week, the Icon of the Seas was docked in Costa Maya, Mexico. There aren't a lot of details about exactly what happened, but we do know that the fire took place in what's known as a non-technical area, which means the operating systems of the ship were not in any danger. It doesn't sound like really anybody was in any danger. They got it taken care of very quickly. There was a power outage. People who were on shore, because again, the ship was docked, were temporarily not allowed to board the ship. The gangway was closed, but they were able to get it taken care of in a relatively short period of time. It was obviously not anything too serious because not long after that, they set sail for their next port. So, the crew did exactly what they're trained to do. They put out the fire. We don't know where it was or what caused it yet. I'm sure that will eventually come to light because whenever there's a situation like this, there is always an investigation. So once we have more information, we'll pass that along. But the good news is nobody was injured. The ship is fine, and everybody is making their way to the next stop.
And it looks like all those budget cuts over at Carnival Corporation are finally starting to pay off.
Yeah, they just released their latest quarterly report and had the call that they always have with banks to sort of go over the numbers. And it is probably not going to be a surprise to anyone to hear that they made a lot of money. While they didn't say this specifically during the call, they could have summed the whole thing up with, we are basically printing money, because that is what's happening. It's not just Carnival, really. It's kind of across the industry because the industry didn't just bounce back, it rebounded bigger than ever. That's the only person that's not good news for is any cruiser who is, hoping to get a good deal on an upcoming sailing, because right now for 2024, it's the best year they've ever had, both in terms of pricing, meaning what they are able to sell staterooms for, and as far as occupancy or capacity. So, the ships are sailing at most are sailing at anywhere from 94 to 105% capacity. We talk about that a lot. It's 100. You can be over 100% because there's more than two people in rooms. And when you look at when you look at occupancy, you're looking at double occupancy, which is different than maximum occupancy. If you're thinking, well, you know what, I'll just wait and I'll book something in 2025, that may not necessarily get you anything cheaper either, because already, even though it's very early, when they look at 2025, they are seeing both, higher price and higher occupancy. So definitely, very good numbers for Carnival. The other place they're also seeing big numbers. And remember, this isn't just Carnival Cruise Line. This is Carnival Corporation. The other really good thing for them here, and again, I'm not sure whether this is a good or a bad thing for potential cruisers, but they are seeing a surge in onboard spending. I feel like we've been talking about this for the last 2 years. Like people going on the ships are spending more, whether it's on shore excursions through the ship, whether it's in the casino, whether they're eating in restaurants, whether they're getting on board and then buying the drink package, which tip always buy it before you get on board because it'll be a little bit cheaper. But no matter what metric you look at, they are making more money. There's really no downside to being at Carnival right now. The only thing I don't really understand, and that's because I am not an expert in this type of thing, but I don't understand how all of the cruise lines are making so much money, but it's not being reflected in the stock. I don't really understand how stock prices are influenced, but it's weird to me that I know a lot of us went out and bought stock when they were at their all-time low, and they haven't really rebounded to what they were before the shutdown, which I don't understand. Maybe one day we'll talk to a financial expert and get them to explain why, it is that a company can be making lots and lots of money, but it doesn't really get reflected in the stock price.
Although if you did buy Royal Caribbean in 2020 when it dropped to $22 or $23, it's at $160 at the time of recording. So that's a pretty good.
Which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like, why did they rebound better than ever, but the others haven't? I don't know the answer to that, but I will try and find an answer so that we can talk about it in the future.
Yeah, perhaps managing debt better. I have no clue though. Yeah, your answer is as good as mine. So we'll move on here and get out of the finance territory and talk about this nasty heat taking over, because it looks like overseas they're giving some warnings to cruise passengers.
We actually here in upstate New York, or in the Woodstock area and the surrounding area, we were under what's called a heat dome for a while. And I don't know what that is, but it is not good. And it was really, really hot. I pictured it being sort of like one of those silver domes that they serve dinners on, and it's to keep the dinner warm. Well, it works because we were boiling under that heat dome. But the story we're actually talking about here is in Greece, where they are also having record-breaking temperatures, and as a result, they're actually having to give tourists a warning, whether they're coming on cruise ships or otherwise, that, be careful, stay hydrated, don't overexert yourself, because at least 5 people have died so far in Greece who were on tourism excursions. In this weather, it doesn't take a whole lot. You don't realize quite how quickly you can become dehydrated and pass out. So that has definitely been a problem in Greece, and they actually issued a warning to tourists. Be careful, hydrate. Don't hike if you don't have to, because it's actually pretty dangerous. So if you are traveling, no matter where you're going, keep an eye on the heat advisories, keep an eye on the weather, and really take all the precautions.
In a bold move by the Port of Seattle over on the West Coast, they said plug in or don't come here.
Yeah, this is really big. The Port of Seattle is mandating that all docked cruise ships must switch to shore power by 2027. Now, there already was a plan in place in the Port of Seattle that they would ask all cruise ships to be plugged in, but the original plan was for 2030. So they've actually bumped the deadline up 3 years. This is going to make the Port of Seattle the first port in the United States to enforce mandatory shore power usage for any vessels that are docked. One of the reasons that this is so important is, obviously it's great for the environment. When the ships are in port, they will plug in as opposed to keeping the engines running and spewing. We love cruise ships, but we also know they're not particularly great for the environment. This is a great move. And one of the reasons it's important that it's Seattle is Seattle has seen a huge number of cruise ships lately. They are actually seeing record numbers of cruise ships because so many of the ships are going to Alaska. We've seen a huge bump in the number of ships and the number of lines going to Alaska over the last year or two. And a lot of those, while many of them sail out of other ports like Vancouver, many of them sail out of Seattle. So this is a very big move being made by a port.
This next story is right up your alley because you love your loyalty points.
I do. I love loyalty points, and I really have been looking to all of the lines lately to sort of step up their game because it is important. I think a few years ago, MSC really kind of raised the bar a little bit when they said, hey, bring us your loyalty card from other lines and we will match it. I'm doing MSC later this year for the first time, and I'm getting on one of their ships for the very first time at like the almost the highest level because they accepted my loyalty points from Norwegian. In this case, the story we're talking about is Princess Cruise Line. And what they're doing is kind of interesting. It's a limited time offer. But if you are sailing on Princess between August 1st and December 1st of this year, let's say you've already booked your sailing, but you haven't yet booked your packages, your drink package and all that. Princess offers two different packages. One is called the Princess Plus package, and one is called the Princess Premier package. Both offer, things, various perks that you are usually purchasing, the drink package, the Wi-Fi, things like that. If you purchase either of these packages for a cruise that is setting sail between August 1st and December 1st of 2024, they will double the loyalty points you earned. So example, what that means is if, let's say you're doing a 7-night cruise on the Enchanted Princess, and let's say you get 1 loyalty point for each night of that cruise, that would be 7 points. If you buy this package and that for a sailing between those particular dates, you will get 14 points instead of 7 points. So any cruises during that period, you can call them, book your packages, and they will give you double loyalty points, which means, obviously, twice, not to borrow a phrase from Carnival, but, faster to the fun. You're getting to those, the higher loyalty perks even quicker. So that's a really, really, really good thing. If you have a cruise booked on Princess or are planning to book something in the later half of the year between August and December, definitely make sure you're taking advantage of this because it would be foolish not to.
And I haven't had time to call Princess on this yet because it's been so crazy around here, but I got an email on this story saying that if you book a suite, you actually get ×3 the points instead of double the points. So as always, check the fine print there or ask your travel agent, but it looks like you could get a couple of more points if you're booking a suite.
Wow. I mean, 3 times the point, it doesn't sound like a lot because let's say, like we were talking in the example we were talking about, you're going from 7 points to 14 points. But those add up. If you're cruising 2 or 3 times a year, those points really can add up. I mean, I get some great perks when I sail. Like I said, with Norwegian, I have the highest level and I get free meals and free laundry. And it really, boy, I cannot advise enough that you take advantage of loyalty programs as much as you possibly can.
I couldn't have said it better. Staff writer Richard Sibbs. By the way, you're leaving this weekend, right, on the Queen Mary 2?
I am. I'm leaving Saturday on the Queen Mary 2. I'm very, 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 I'm nervous and excited, and I have new clothes that I hope I still fit into. Going to be doing scones and tea and, I don't know, dancing in the ballroom. Who knows? I can't wait to try it.
Well, if technology lets us, we hope to link up next week for news. If not, we'll talk to you when you get back. Staff writer Richard Sims, as always, thank you so much, my friend.
Glad to be here.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Have a question or a comment for the show?
Yeah!
Send an email or voice memo to doug@cruiseradio.net.
Kurt just returned from a 9-night Caribbean voyage on Royal Caribbean's Liberty of the Seas out of Cape Liberty, New Jersey. He joins us on the line. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm good.
As we always do, before we get to the ship, we'll take a step back here. Now, you're in the Maryland area, and you were cruising out of Cape Liberty, which is in New Jersey. What made you want to take this 9-nighter?
Well, I always look for things that are drivable. I mean, that's the most convenient thing to do for me. I found this itinerary, looked interesting. I like longer cruises. It all seemed to fall into place.
How far out do you normally book these? Are you like a last minute cruiser, or are you looking for like a year and a half in advance or so when they go on sale?
Oh, I'm looking way out because the prices have just kept going up. And when I saw that trend, I just started to book further and further out. Gotcha. I've got stuff booked quite a ways out now.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I haven't sailed out of Cape Liberty in, a decade now. Quantum of the Seas 2014. How was it now? Easy in, easy out, plenty of parking, all of that?
Oh, yeah, it's super easy. They've got a parking garage right next to the terminal, and you drive in. It's all right there. It's very convenient, not much walking. I think there's some remote parking, but generally we can get into the parking garage.
And how long did it take you to get from the parking garage onto the actual ship itself?
A little longer than normal. That one of their gangways was out. And so it's funny, my daughter was on a trip just ahead of me. So she was departing before we got there on the same day. And so she warned us that the gangway was not functioning. So I think it was a bigger problem in departure than it was on arrival. But I do think it slowed us down a little bit. It's probably 20 minutes, which is a little longer than normal, where we sat in a chair and waited for them to, put us on the ship.
In Cape Liberty, Bayonne, are you still having to print stuff out at embarkation?
No, you don't have to print anything. I do print the CPass card just in case, I want something, in case my phone died or something, who knows, I wouldn't want that to be the thing holding me back. But yeah, you do it all in advance. And it's really easy. You just show them your passport.
You walk on board the ship. What were your first impressions of Liberty of the Seas?
Heard a lot of positive comments about the Freedom class. And so this was Liberty, right? Same class. But I'd never been on that class of ship before. The layout is really similar to Explorer or to the Voyager class. I'd just been on Explorer, so I mentioned that. And so I expected it to be similar, but have more of a sense of being larger. And I got on and I was like, man, I do not know what's different between these two ships, because I think it's a little wider beam, but it wasn't obvious to me. So that was my first impression, was this is a little bit smaller than I expected it to be. Not that it's small.
Since you've been on the others, does the Promenade on Liberty offer more than the previous class?
A little bit. I mean, there was a cupcake shop we never did. I think they segmented the pizza place and the little deli area. That might have been different.
Gotcha.
Maybe a little bit. Not tremendously different, though. Still at a pub. I mean, the things that I'm interested in, they seemed about the same. You
make your way to your stateroom. What kind of stateroom did you book for this 9-night cruise, and how was it throughout the 9 nights?
It was a promenade view interior, which is probably a little bit different than we normally have done. I've done a room like this before, and I picked this room because it used to be the Ben & Jerry's Cow Suite. And they've since, after I booked it, and not long before the cruise, they abandoned their relationship with Ben & Jerry's. So it wasn't the Cow Suite anymore, even though there was a cow pitcher inside of it. So it didn't have any of the perks that they used to offer. It was a little disappointing in that regard, but it was a little small compared to what I'm accustomed to. And at the bay window that looks out over the promenade gives you a little bit more space and a little bit more area to sit, because it's almost like you have 2 small couches inside the room. So from that perspective, it wasn't too bad. But yeah, it was a little tighter than normal.
So when you first, if I'm understanding this correctly, when you actually booked this cabin, it was sold under the Ben & Jerry's title or theming, correct?
It's always been unofficial, so I knew there was no guarantee.
Right.
It wasn't like they advertised it as that.
Sure.
It just had that reputation, and I'd seen videos where people, go in and there's cows everywhere, and I thought this is going to be pretty unique, and the price was good, so I thought, let's just do it. And then it changed. So it wasn't worth changing to anything else. And, like I said, prices have just kept going up. So when I did look at other options, they were not very attractive price-wise.
I could be making this up because my memory is not what it used to be, but about 10 years ago, I sailed either Allure or Freedom, and I was talking to a guest staying in one, and they said they got free Ben & Jerry's ice cream the entire sailing. Was that a thing?
Yeah, that has to be the same thing.
Okay.
Because I guess previously there was a big cow on top of the awning for the Ben and Jerry's on the promenade, and that cow blocked your view out of the promenade room. Well, they took the cow down, so we didn't have a problem with our view, and so they, didn't offer us any sort of compensation.
Not a bad trade-off. I take the cow view for the ice cream.
I know.
Any noise issues to speak of around your cabin?
No, actually, the room we had was a connecting room, and that was one thing I was a little apprehensive about, and it wasn't too bad. I didn't hear anything really through that doorway.
Okay.
You get some noise from the promenade when they have a big event, but when they're happening, they don't run them too late, so noise really wasn't a problem at all.
Let's talk food. How was it through the 9 days in the Windjammer?
A little hit and miss. Mostly pretty good. I could always find something I wanted. I thought the salad bar was awesome. I hadn't had a good salad in quite a long time, and there was this little girl in front of me, and she said, "I'm going to the chicken nugget station after this to put some nuggets on here." And I thought, that's a good idea. So that became a little habit of mine after a little while. The Windjammer was pretty good. We could generally get a seat in there. So I liked it.
How about outside of the Windjammer by the pool? Any like burger places, hot dogs, or I know some ships have that Mexican, was it Loco Fresh?
No, they didn't have they have a Johnny Rockets, but that's an extra fee. They didn't have anything like that on this ship.
Okay. Which
is kind of unfortunate because, I know. I mean, other ships have the doghouse or something, that's something that you can get quickly. But, the Windjammer's not far away, so you can do that.
Gotcha. Talk to us about your main dining room experience. And how was the food?
Good. The menu doesn't change a whole lot. And just like the Windjammer, can be a little hit and miss sometimes. I was happy with it. I'm pretty familiar with the Royal menu, so I was prepared for it. And it was essentially what I expected.
What time dining did you go with?
We go with the early. Like to go to dinner and then to a show. Gotcha. That's our regular habit. How
long did the service take in the main dining room?
That kind of varied. I don't know. Sometimes we were out of there pretty quickly, maybe an hour. And other times it seemed like we were an hour and a half and maybe pushing a little longer than that.
Gotcha.
There seemed to be some gaps at times, but every day was different, I think. We couldn't really count on one thing or the other.
Any specialty dining?
We always do a lunch on the first day to avoid the Windjammer. And so we went to Chops for lunch. But other than that, no. I had plans to try Giovanni's. Only because I got a really good deal, but we decided not to do that later. I canceled it.
The lunch at Chops, is that something that you get because of like the diamond status, or is that a paid meal you do?
No, it's a paid meal, but the lunches tend to be a lot cheaper. So I think on Black Friday I paid somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 or something, and then you have to add tips and all that stuff onto it. But it's reasonable. And you get a pretty, it's not a lot different there from the dinner menu. It's a little reduced, but not much. So I get I fill of it. I avoid all the crowds. I don't have to hang around with my suitcases. I can just set them next to me and, I'm good.
The entertainment on board, because it was a 9-night cruise, did any of it repeat? I've been on a couple of sailings that have been longer than 8 nights, and I have seen some of the same shows repeating. How was it on this one?
No, I don't remember any repeating, other than, things that they repeated so that people could catch them. They had a Saturday Night Fever as a production show. It was good. I couldn't really follow the story. I didn't remember much of the movie. I don't even know if I'd seen the whole movie. I think my wife's expectations were way higher than mine, so she wasn't a big fan, even though the music she liked and all of that. But they have an ice show, which is good. They had an aerialist group, and they were pretty good. They had a hypnotist, which I'd never seen on a ship before, and that was entertaining. And we bumped into a guy later that was one of the most active participants, and he made it sound like he wasn't really under, and he was kind of playing along. So maybe that's the secret to it. I don't know. Probably one of our favorite things was an Elton John tribute act, and he was really good.
Any comedy shows?
There was a comedian in the theater on earlier in the cruise, and then one maybe the last night, and they were both good. I chuckled a bit. I don't remember them being tremendously funny. I think I've seen more, better comedians on other sailings. I don't know. They were okay. I wasn't thrilled.
You ever do any of those Quest shows?
I've done them before. I did not go to this one.
Yeah. How about the theater shows? Can you just roll in there and get a seat, or do you have to do like a reservation on the app?
No reservations for these. In the app, you put down what you're interested in seeing, but it doesn't register. It's not like you're holding a place when you do that. It's just for your own benefit when you look through your schedule and see what's on at any given time. And then I get all these notifications later reminding me.
Yeah.
I need to scale back a little bit on my anticipated viewing.
I know the feeling of that. How was the smoke situation in or around the casino?
No, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And we did walk through that, and we used it, to go from one side of the ship to the other sometimes. And it wasn't that bad. In fact, I usually play a little bit, particularly with the promotional money that they provide. And that's not like a diamond thing. I think the value goes up, but you can play a few dollars on your card if you know how to tap it out. Yeah. But and then I went back because there was a machine I kind of liked. Never won anything, but it was fun. But no, the smoke wasn't that bad in there, I didn't think.
How were the sea days as far as crowds and congestion?
A little crowded by the main pool. A lot of space by the children's play structure, which I was a little hesitant to do at first because I just envisioned a lot of screaming and stuff in that area. But there were so few children on the sailing that it wasn't a problem at all. And we just sat way back. I mean, we didn't have any kids to watch, so we just kind of sat as far back from there as we could. But we could always find a chair in that area generally. One day we did the solarium, and I don't know if it was particular to that day because there were a couple of windy days, but it was like a wind tunnel in there. And so that steered us away and pushed us towards the more open back of the ship area.
Well, this was a pretty cool itinerary because you actually got to hit up Bermuda as well as the Eastern Caribbean. So let's talk about some of these ports of call, starting with Bermuda.
Yeah, Bermuda is, it's a really pleasant port. It's a little pricey. And we didn't do a lot on this sailing. We got off and just explored around the dockside area. We went into the little shopping mall that they have, which is in an old building. So, it's not like, the local neighborhood mall. But, and then there was some sort of pharmacy that has a lot of knickknack gifts and, things like that. But because it's a British Commonwealth, then we could find, my wife found some sort of Cadbury bar that you can't get locally. So, that was kind of fun. Okay. So we just headed back. We didn't spend that much time there. We'd been there last year, I think, and I'd been a little more active there. But I was really looking to relax on this trip, so we didn't try to hammer out a whole lot of stuff.
I've only been to Bermuda once. Is it one of those ports where, say you're docked there 2 days, can you knock it all out in one day and just chill on the ship the next day, or is there enough to keep you going for the whole entire time?
I think there's a lot of things you can do. Mm-hmm. I mentioned that my daughter was on a prior sailing, and that's all they did was multiple days in Bermuda. And they had a lot of things planned, kayaking and caving, and they went to a sea glass beach. And what else? They did a boat ride where there's a glass bottom boat at night. So they just light up underneath the boat. And she said that was better than she expected. So I think there's a lot of things you could do. There's a water taxi that you can go into Hamilton. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've done before is we've gone into Hamilton, wandered around there, had a meal there. But we didn't try that on this trip. There wasn't a lot of time there. I think that was part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. They normally, if you're only there for the day, you get like maybe a solid 8 hours. That's about it. Sometimes 6, and then you're done.
Right.
The next 3 ports, you did them back to back after a sea day. You did St. Martin, you did San Juan, and Puerto Plata, which is over in the DR. Give us a highlight from each one of those.
Well, St. Martin has a little ferry that goes across to kind of the central part of the main strip, and I don't remember what it's called, Front Street maybe. And we went to a duty-free shop there. We went to a little bar, sat out on the just like a countertop bar to look out over the water. Had a few drinks, had, I don't know, some sort of hors d'oeuvres or something, and just enjoyed the seaside. It was a nice day. It was pretty hot, so that was enough.
In St. Martin, I think my last time there was 2019, and of course it was hit by a hurricane a couple of years before that. Is it back to normal where like you could still see foundations where buildings were wiped off in the port area I'm talking about? Did it just seem like everything was rebuilt and thriving again?
Yeah, the port area itself is kind of one of those isolated port areas, mm-hmm. and it's very clean and pleasant in there. So no, it looks pretty good. I don't know what it looks like in the rest of the island, but where we saw was good.
Your next port of call, you didn't have much time there, but you went to San Juan, Puerto Rico. How was that?
Yeah, we made the most of it in San Juan because we met a friend of mine down there that has a house down there, and he was able to join us for that time that we had. So he met us down by the end of the pier, and it was kind of fun walking through all of these guys that wanted to sell us a cab ride and saying, no, friend's coming. And so he picked us up. He took us to a bakery, and that was kind of unique because I never would have found this place. I guess it's a place that Obama had visited when he was president. Mm-hmm. There was it's like a deli bakery sandwich shop. So they had it all there. It was kind of long and thin, and we had breakfast at that place, and that was some sort of breakfast sandwich I'd never had before. It had some little bit of powdered sugar on the top of the bread that I was eating. And then from there we went to I think it's called Isla Verde Beach, and along that area there's a lot of like pop-up restaurants. They're like little stalls where they have seating and stuff along there. And from what I understand, we were there, I think it was Tuesday, so it wasn't busy at that point. But from what I understand, the weekend it gets really busy. And we drove that coastline out to the end, came back, and then we from there went to a grocery store, which we like to do to see what's different, and brought back a few things from there, and then back to the ship after taking a little downtown Old Town area, Old San Juan area.
Yeah, sounds like you
had a great time there.
Yeah, you made the most of it for sure. And your next port of call was over in the Dominican Republic, which was the Puerto Plata area. How was your day there?
It was good. That's a really interesting place. It's the developed port areas was very nice, and there's a there's a free pool and lazy river, and I did the lazy river, which was kind of fun. You just had to wait for somebody to return a tube and then jump in. So that's a really nice area. I knew nothing about it. And that was a replacement for Labadee, where we were supposed to go. But because of the troubles in Haiti, they've pulled a lot of sailings out of there. I think they're continuing to do that at this point. The port itself was really nice.
You had 2 days at sea after leaving the DR, then you're back in Jersey. How was your debark?
Well, a little slow because, like I mentioned, one of the gangways was still out by the time we got back, so that hadn't been fixed. And we waited a little while. It was nearly half an hour to get off the ship, and that's really unusual. Once we did start moving, they kind of held the crowds back so that not everyone was jammed into the terminal at the same time. So once we did get down, we could get to our bags pretty easily and get out of there. So it wasn't bad, despite the gangway thing.
Are you one of those people that like to get off the ship early, though, or do you hang around until they're like, okay, we're trying to empty the ship out by 10 o'clock?
I would say the latter.
Okay.
Go down, I have a leisurely breakfast, and I'm not in a big hurry to get off, so it didn't really bother me. I mean, we're just driving home, and if we get home a little later, so be it. We're not flying out of there, so it's pretty easy.
Any first-time tips to offer someone either sailing Liberty of the Seas or doing that 9-night Southern or Eastern Caribbean voyage?
I think just scope out your room pretty well. That's one of the tips I would have, just in general. We had some problems where our sink and our shower weren't draining all that well. It wasn't terrible, but I noticed after I showered, there was water on the floor where it had risen to a level where it was starting to, go past what the door allowed. And I noticed the sink was the same way. So I had somebody come out, they fixed it, and they did actually fix it. I was a little worried if it was clogged up, then maybe the toilets would be next, but I think it's a different system. But just things like that. The room wasn't quite cold enough. We had a few people come out and adjust some things. Like the little refrigerator didn't do anything at first. So that's one tip. But the other tip, I always give the tip that I think it's a lot easier to get a specialty lunch rather than try to fight your way through the buffet. It's too overwhelming when you're first getting on.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to be there.
Biggest highlight for this 9-night cruise?
Well, it's got to be the time I spent with my friend in San Juan. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it. Got an insider's point of view on everything, so it was good.
To wrap it up, final thoughts of Liberty of the Seas.
It was a nice ship. I can't say it's my favorite ship. We've been on Anthem quite a few times, and I know it's older, and I think and we were on Explorer prior to that, so I think I expected something a little. I think I was more impressed with Explorer for some reason. I don't know why exactly, but it seemed a little. Maybe my expectation levels were different for each trip. That could have been it. I can't remember what the refurb schedule was, but I think this one is nearly due for a refurb, and that may have had something to do with it. The other thing that it has, though, that is unique is there's a big slide on it that kind of goes up, like you go down the slide and then you go up a wall and then back down, but it's a 2-person slide. So you have to be in a 2-person raft. My wife is not into that stuff, so I didn't have any opportunity to do it, but that looked like a lot of fun, and I don't think that's offered on any other ships.
We've been talking with Kurt about his 9-night cruise aboard Royal Caribbean's Liberty of the Seas. Kurt, as always, it's great talking to you, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Hey, thanks, Doug. Appreciate the time.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,